My name is Nick Halprin, and 3 years ago, I became a ghost. Not the supernatural kind. Just the regular variety that haunts your ex-wife's nightmares when she realizes she threw away the best thing that ever happened to her. It started on a Tuesday. Dr. Evelyn Halprin. Yes, she kept my name even after what she did. The irony wasn't lost on me. Walked into our kitchen wearing her fresh white coat, still smelling like hospital disinfectant and someone else's cologne. She slapped divorce papers on the counter next to my morning coffee like she was prescribing medication. Finally dropping the dead weight, she announced to her phone, speaker on, her best friend Becca cackling on the other end. God, I should have done this years ago. That's what 41 years of life, 15 years of marriage, and countless nights holding her hair while she puked through medical school had earned me. I was Nick Halprin, maintenance manager at Riverside Hospital, ex-paramedic with a gimpy left leg from a construction accident, and apparently dead weight. She expected tears, maybe begging, definitely a fight. Instead, I signed the papers with the pen she'd left on the counter, her fancy Mont Blanc, the one I'd bought her for graduation, and walked out. Didn't pack a bag, didn't say a word, didn't even finish my coffee. Just signed and vanished like smoke. The look on her face was worth every sleepless night that followed. And that was 3 years ago. 3 years of silence from my end, 3 years of living in a rented house on Pine Ridge Road, 3 years of Mrs. Clay, my 70-year-old landlord, bringing me casseroles and updates on that awful woman who used to be married to you. 3 years of 237 missed calls, 412 text messages, and 68 emails from Dr. Evelyn Halprin, all unanswered. I kept count because numbers don't lie, unlike wives. The messages started angry. You can't just disappear, Nick. We need to talk about the house, the car, then desperate. Please call me back. I know you're getting these. Mrs. Patterson at the grocery store said she saw you. Then pathetic. I made a mistake. Can we please just talk? And finally, nothing. Radio silence for the past 6 months. Until yesterday. I was finishing my shift at the hospital. Different department now. Industrial maintenance for the new wing. When Mrs. Clay called. Her voice crackled through my phone like autumn leaves. Nicholas, dear, that woman was here again, your ex-wife. She was asking the Hendersons about you, wanting to know if you still live here. I told her it was none of her business, but she seemed different. Desperate, maybe? Different. That was interesting. Evelyn was many things. Manipulative, ambitious, cruel when it suited her, but never desperate. Desperate was for people like me, apparently. Dead-weight people. What did she want to know? Everything. Where you work, who you see, if you're dating anyone. She offered Mrs. Henderson $50 for your phone number. Can you believe that? $50. I could believe it. What I couldn't believe was why she cared. The divorce had been finalized 2 years ago. She got the house, the car, half my pension, and her freedom. I got a limp, a rented room, and the satisfaction of knowing I'd never have to listen to her complain about my lack of ambition again. Thanks for the heads up, Mrs. Clay, and thanks for not giving her anything. Oh, I gave her something all right. I told her exactly what I thought of women who abandon their husbands the minute they think they can do better. She didn't like that much. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Mrs. Clay was 80 pounds of pure spite wrapped in floral house dresses and orthopedic shoes. If Evelyn had tangled with her, she'd lost. After hanging up, I drove to the Faded Lantern, the dive bar where nobody asked questions and everybody minded their own business. Stan Kowalski, my friend since high school and the closest thing to family I had left, was working security. Ex-cop, built like a refrigerator, and loyal as a dog. You look like someone pissed in your beer, he said, sliding me a Budweiser without being asked. Evelyn's been sniffing around again. Stan's face darkened. He'd never liked my ex-wife, said she had dead eyes and a calculator for a heart. He'd been right, as usual. What's she want? That's the million-dollar question. Cassie, the bartender who knew every piece of gossip in town, leaned over the bar. She was 50-something with bleached hair and a cigarette voice, but she heard everything and remembered more. Speaking of your ex, she said, pulling out her phone, you might want to see this. She showed me a photo. Evelyn and some guy in a white coat, making out against a black Porsche in what looked like the hospital parking garage. The timestamp showed it was taken 2 weeks ago, but something about it looked familiar. Who took this? Anonymous tip. Someone's been watching The Good Doctor and her boyfriend. Thought you might be interested. I studied the photo more carefully. The man was tall, dark-haired, probably mid-40s. Expensive suit under the white coat, wedding ring catching the light. The Porsche had a vanity plate. Brandt 1, Dr. Lucas Brandt, department head of cardiology. Married to Miranda Brandt, who ran the biggest law firm in town. 2 kids, big house on Elm Street, reputation as clean as his surgical instruments, and he was tongue deep in my ex-wife's mouth. But here's the thing that made my blood turn to ice water. I recognized that parking garage, that angle, that lighting. I'd seen this exact scene before, or something very close to it. 3 years and 2 months ago, the night before Evelyn served me divorce papers. "Cassie," I said, my voice steady as a surgeon's hand. "I need you to do me a favor. Name it, honey. Find out everything you can about Dr. Lucas Brandt and his relationship with my ex-wife. And I mean everything." She grinned like a shark smelling blood. "This is going to be fun." I left the bar with my head clearer than it had been in years. Dead weight, she'd called me. Dead weight doesn't move, doesn't react, doesn't fight back, but it sure as hell sinks things when it shifts. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I put on my old paramedic uniform and walked into Riverside Hospital like I belonged there. Which, technically I did. Maintenance had access to every floor, every room, every dirty little corner where people thought their secrets were safe. The hospital was a gossip mill disguised as a medical facility. Nurses, orderlies, technicians, security guards, they all talked, and they all knew each other's business. The trick was knowing how to listen. I started in the basement, checking HVAC systems and keeping my ears open. By lunch, I'd learned that Dr. Lucas Brandt drove his Porsche to work every day, parked in the executive lot, and had a reputation for mentoring young female staff members. By dinner, I knew he'd been seen leaving the hospital at odd hours with different women over the past few years. And by closing time, I'd confirmed what I already suspected. He'd been screwing my wife long before she decided I was dead weight. The security office was my next stop. Frankie Morrison worked nights, a sleazy little man with wandering hands and a mouth that ran like a broken faucet. He'd always flirted with Evelyn when she was doing her residency, and I'd always wanted to break his nose for it. "Nick, didn't expect to see you down here," he said, looking nervous. "Thought you worked days now. Emergency call. Water leak in the executive parking garage. You know how it is." "Yeah, sure," he relaxed, thinking I was just doing my job. "That your ex-wife I saw the other night. Dr. Halprin?" "Don't know, don't care. We're divorced, remember?" Right. Just thought you might want to know she's been spending a lot of time with Dr. Brandt. Real cozy, if you know what I mean." I knew exactly what he meant. "How long has that been going on?" Frankie leaned back in his chair, enjoying having information someone wanted. "Long time. Years, maybe. I used to see them in his office after hours, you know? Door locked, lights dim. Not exactly discussing patient care, if you catch my drift." Years, the word hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Not months, not weeks. Years, maybe. "I ever see anything specific?" "Oh, buddy, I seen plenty. Got it all on the security cameras, too, before they made me delete the files. But I might have kept a few copies. Just for insurance, you understand?" Of course he had. Frankie was the type who collected dirt like some people collected stamps. "I'd be interested in seeing those files," I said carefully. "I bet you would. But information like that, it's valuable. Might be worth something to the right person." I pulled out my wallet and counted 5 20s onto his desk. "How's this for valuable?" Frankie's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "Now we're talking. Give me your email address. I'll send you everything I got." 20 minutes later, I was sitting in my truck in the hospital parking lot, watching the files download to my phone. Security footage from different dates, different times, but all showing the same thing: my wife and Dr. Lucas Brandt in various stages of their affair. The earliest timestamp was from 4 years ago. 4 fucking years. I'd been working double shifts to help pay for her medical school, coming home exhausted and sore, while she was playing doctor with Dr. Brandt in his office. I'd been cooking dinner, doing laundry, holding her when she cried about the stress of her residency, while she was getting stress relief from someone else. The rage that filled me was clean and pure, like surgical spirit. It burned away the last traces of hurt and confusion, leaving behind something harder and infinitely more dangerous. My phone buzzed with a text from Cassie. "Got info on your boyfriend Brandt. Meet me at the bar." I drove to the faded lantern with the security files burning a hole in my phone and murder in my heart. Cassie was waiting with a manila folder and a shot of whiskey. "Drink first," she said. "Then we talk." Naida Durand. Lucas Brandt, age 42. Married to Miranda Brandt for 15 years. 2 kids, Emma and Jake. Lives at 1247 Elm Street, in a house worth about $2 million. Drives a black Porsche 911, license plate Brandt 1. Clean reputation, good surgeon, department head for the past 3 years. And he's got a gambling problem his wife doesn't know about. Owes money to some very unpleasant people. Also has a history of affairs. Your ex-wife isn't his first rodeo, just his longest-running show. She slid the folder across the table. Inside were bank records, credit reports, and what looked like surveillance photos. "How did you get all this?" "I have friends in low places, the kind of friends who know things about people like Dr. Brandt. Turns out, when you owe money to loan sharks, your business becomes everyone's business." I flipped through the documents. Lucas Brandt was living a double life, respectable surgeon by day, degenerate gambler by night. He owed nearly $200,000 to various bookies and loan sharks, money he'd been borrowing against his salary and his wife's law practice. "There's more," Cassie said. "Your ex-wife has been helping him. She's been funneling money from her divorce settlement, your money, technically, to pay off his debts." The irony was perfect. Evelyn had called me dead weight while using my money to support her boyfriend's gambling addiction. "I need to see them together," I said. "I need proof." "Already ahead of you." Cassie pulled out another photo. "They meet every Friday night at the Riverside Motel on Route 9, room 237. Been going there for months." I studied the photo. It showed Evelyn and Lucas entering a motel room together, her hand on his ass, his mouth on her neck. The timestamp was from last Friday. "One more thing," Cassie said. "Brandt's wife hired a private investigator last month. She knows something's up, just doesn't know what yet." The pieces were falling into place like a jigsaw puzzle made of broken glass. Lucas was cheating on his wife with mine. Evelyn was using my money to pay his gambling debts. Miranda Brandt was investigating her husband. And I was sitting in the middle of it all, the dead weight that was about to become the anchor that dragged them all to the bottom. "Cassie," I said, finishing my beer, "how would you like to help me destroy some lives?" Her grin was sharp enough to cut glass. "Honey, I thought you'd never ask." Friday night found me parked across from the Riverside Motel, with a telephoto camera and a heart full of malice. Stan sat in the passenger seat, chewing gum and watching the entrance like a cop on a stakeout. "Remind me again why we're doing this, instead of just beating the shit out of both of them," he asked. "Because beating them up would be quick. This is going to last forever." At 9:47 p.m., Lucas's Porsche pulled into the motel parking lot. Evelyn's Honda was already there, parked in front of room 237. I watched through the camera lens as Lucas knocked on the door. It opened, revealing my ex-wife in a red dress I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so fucking insulting. I took pictures as they kissed in the doorway, as his hands roamed over her body, as she pulled him inside and closed the door. Professional quality photographs that would hold up in any divorce court in the country. "Now what?" Stan asked. "Now we wait." They stayed in the room for 2 hours. When they finally emerged, disheveled and satisfied, I got more pictures. Lucas kissing her goodbye, Evelyn adjusting her dress, both of them looking like they'd just finished fucking each other's brains out. Which of course they had. I followed Lucas home, staying far enough back to avoid detection. His house was a monument to success. Perfectly manicured lawn, expensive cars in the driveway, security system that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. But security systems only work if you remember to set them. I watched from across the street as Lucas stumbled into his house, clearly drunk. The lights came on in what looked like the master bedroom, then went out 20 minutes later. The house went dark, and I waited another hour to make sure everyone was asleep. Then I went to work. The Porsche was parked in the driveway, gleaming black paint reflecting the streetlights. I'd brought a few tools from work. Nothing fancy, just some basic maintenance equipment that could be used for purposes other than maintenance. I started with the tires. Not slashing them. That would be too obvious, too crude. Instead, I loosened the valve stems just enough to create a slow leak. By morning, all 4 tires would be flat, but it would look like a mechanical failure rather than vandalism. Next, I popped the hood and got creative. A handful of sardines stuffed into the air conditioning intake would create a smell that would linger for months. A few drops of brake fluid on the paint would leave permanent stains. and a small pebble in the brake line cap would create a grinding noise that would drive him crazy but wouldn't actually damage anything. Finally, I left a note under his windshield wiper. Miranda knows about Evelyn. Tick-tock. It wasn't true. Not yet. But it would be soon enough. I was back in my truck and driving away before the first neighbor's dog started barking. By morning, Dr. Lucas Brandt would wake up to a nightmare that was just beginning. Saturday morning, I drove to Miranda Brandt's law office. She worked weekends, according to Cassie's research, usually alone in her corner office on the 15th floor of the Riverside building. Miranda Brandt was everything Evelyn pretended to be: successful, elegant, genuinely intelligent, rather than just ambitious. She was also, according to the private investigators' reports Cassie had somehow obtained, on the verge of divorcing her cheating husband. I took the elevator to the 15th floor and walked into her office like I belonged there. She looked up from her desk, surprised but not alarmed. "Can I help you, Mrs. Brandt? My name is Nick Halprin. I have some information about your husband that I think you'll find interesting." Her expression didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. "What kind of information?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos from the motel. Her face went pale, then hard as granite. "Who is she?" "Dr. Evelyn Halprin, my ex-wife. They've been having an affair for at least 4 years, probably longer." "Your ex-wife?" She studied the photos more carefully. "And you're telling me this because your husband has been using my alimony payments to fund his gambling debts. Because my ex-wife destroyed my marriage for a man who's been cheating on his wife for years. And because I think we both deserve better than the people we married." Miranda Brandt was quiet for a long moment, studying the photos and probably calculating the legal implications. Finally, she looked up at me. "What do you want, Mr. Halprin?" "I want to destroy them both. Completely, publicly, and permanently. And I think you're the woman who can help me do it." She smiled then, and it was the most beautiful and terrifying thing I'd ever seen. "Mr. Halprin," she said, "I think we're going to be very good friends." Monday morning brought chaos to Dr. Lucas Brandt's perfectly ordered world. His Porsche wouldn't start, all 4 tires were flat, and the smell of rotting fish poured out of the air conditioning vents the moment he tried to turn it on. I know this because Frankie, my new best friend in hospital security, called to tell me about it. "You should see this guy," Frankie wheezed into the phone. "He's standing in the parking lot screaming at his car like it can hear him." Security had to calm him down before the patients started complaining about the noise. "Did he find the note?" "Oh yeah, he found it." Went white as a sheet, started looking around like someone was watching him. Which, technically, someone was. Good. Phase 1 complete. What's Phase 2? You'll know it when you see it. Phase 2 arrived in the form of an anonymous email to the hospital's Human Resources Department. The email contains security footage of Dr. Brandt and Dr. Evelyn Halprin engaged in activities that were definitely not covered by the employee handbook, along with documentation of their affair dating back 4 years. Maddie Chen, the head of HR, was a stickler for rules and regulations. She was also, according to Cassie's intelligence network, a woman who took sexual harassment and workplace misconduct very seriously. The investigation started immediately. I was replacing light bulbs in the administrative wing when I saw Evelyn being escorted into Maddie's office by 2 security guards. She looked confused and angry, her perfect composure cracking around the edges. 20 minutes later, Lucas was marched down the same hallway, his face the color of old concrete. They were in separate rooms for 3 hours, being questioned about their relationship, their conduct, and their violation of the hospital's fraternization policies. When they finally emerged, both looked like they'd been hit by a truck. Evelyn spotted me in the hallway and froze. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the ex-wife who'd called me dead weight, and the dead weight who was about to bury her alive. "Nick!" Her voice was small, uncertain. "What are you doing here?" "Working. You know, that thing people do to pay bills and support themselves? You might want to look into it." Her face flushed red. "You bastard. You did this, didn't you?" "Did what?" "I'm just changing light bulbs, Evelyn. Though I have to say, the lighting in HR is excellent. Really illuminates things." She started to say something else, but Lucas appeared at her elbow, grabbing her arm and pulling her away. He shot me a look of pure hatred as they hurried toward the exit. I finished changing the light bulb and whistled while I worked. That evening, I met Miranda Brandt at a coffee shop downtown. She'd spent the day filing divorce papers and freezing joint assets, effectively cutting off Lucas's access to the money he'd been using to pay his gambling debts. He came home in a panic, she told me, stirring her coffee with surgical precision. Started demanding access to my business accounts, saying he needed money for an emergency. When I told him the accounts were frozen, he actually had the nerve to ask me what was wrong. What did you tell him? I told him I knew about his whore and his gambling debts, and that he had 24 hours to get out of my house before I had him arrested for stealing from my law practice. How did he take that? About as well as you'd expect. He's staying at the Riverside Motel now. Room 237, ironically enough. The same room where he'd been screwing my ex-wife. The poetic justice was almost too perfect. What about the gambling debts? Without access to my money or his salary, the hospital suspended him pending investigation. He's got about a week before his creditors start getting impatient. And these aren't the kind of people who accept payment plans. I felt a warm glow of satisfaction spreading through my chest. And Evelyn? Suspended from the hospital, under investigation for ethics violations, and about to lose her medical license if the hospital board decides to press charges. She's also being evicted from her apartment. Apparently, she's been behind on rent for months. Where's she staying? Miranda's smile was sharp as a scalpel. With Dr. Brandt, of course, in room 237 at the Riverside Motel. 2 cheaters, 1 room, and a pile of debts they can't pay. It's like a country song, but with more desperation. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, savoring the destruction we'd unleashed. Then Miranda leaned forward, her eyes bright with malicious intelligence. You know, Mr. Halprin, I think it's time for Phase 3. What did you have in mind? How do you feel about a little public humiliation? I grinned like a wolf scenting prey. Mrs. Brandt, I thought you'd never ask. The Riverside Mall construction site had been abandoned for 2 years, a half-finished monument to economic optimism and poor planning. The concrete shell of what was supposed to be the anchor store stood like a modern ruin at the edge of town, surrounded by rusted equipment and broken dreams. It was also the perfect place for a trap. Stan and I spent Wednesday night setting up. Portable floodlights powered by a generator, speakers connected to my phone, and folding chairs arranged in a semicircle facing what would have been the store's main entrance. Remind me again why we're not just beating them to death with tire irons, Stan asked, testing the microphone system. Because this is better, this is permanent. If you say so, but when this goes sideways, I'm blaming you. Fair enough. Thursday evening, I sent identical text messages to Lucas and Evelyn from a burner phone, pretending to be Frankie. Emergency meeting tonight, 9 p.m. Old mall site, come alone, big trouble if you don't show. Then I sent a different message to 50 people around town. Come see the show tonight. 9 p.m. Old mall construction site. Bring popcorn. I'd invited everyone who mattered, hospital staff, neighbors, local business owners, people from the bar, even Mrs. Clay and her bridge club. Half the town would be there to witness the final act of my revenge. At 8:45 p.m., cars started arriving. By 8:55, we had an audience of about 40 people, all curious about the mysterious show they'd been invited to watch. At exactly 9 p.m., Lucas's Porsche, now running on temporary spare tires and reeking of fish, pulled into the construction site. Evelyn's Honda was right behind it. They got out of their cars, looking confused and nervous, scanning the crowd of people who'd suddenly appeared in the floodlights like actors on a stage. I stepped forward, holding a wireless microphone, and smiled at my ex-wife and her boyfriend. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, my voice carrying clearly through the night air. Thank you all for coming to tonight's performance. I'd like to present Dr. Evelyn Halprin and Dr. Lucas Brandt in their acclaimed production, How to Destroy Your Life in 4 Easy Steps. Evelyn's face went white. Nick, what is this? What are you doing? I'm giving the people what they want, sweetheart. Entertainment, education, a cautionary tale about what happens when you mistake dead weight for a doormat. Lucas stepped forward, trying to look authoritative despite the fact that he was wearing wrinkled clothes and smelled like sardines. This is harassment. I'm calling the police. Please do, I said. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your gambling debts, your affair with a married woman, and your recent suspension from the hospital for sexual misconduct. The crowd murmured with interest. This was better than cable television. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the speaker system. But before you make that call, I thought everyone might enjoy some highlights from your relationship. Frankie in hospital security was kind enough to provide the audio. The first recording started playing. Evelyn's voice, breathy and urgent, talking about how much she hated being married to that pathetic loser, and how she couldn't wait to dump his sorry ass and move on to better things. The crowd was silent, listening to every word. The second recording was Lucas, bragging to someone on the phone about how easy it was to manipulate desperate housewives, and how my ex-wife was paying his debts with her divorce settlement. Evelyn looked like she was going to be sick. "Nick, please, stop this." "Stop what?" "I'm just sharing some memories, like this one." The third recording was both of them, planning to frame me for domestic violence if I ever tried to contest the divorce. Evelyn's voice, cold and calculating, discussing how to fake bruises and what story to tell the police. The crowd's murmur turned ugly. These weren't strangers. These were people who knew me, who'd seen me working quietly and minding my own business for 3 years. The idea that my ex-wife had planned to destroy me completely didn't sit well with them. "You want to know what dead weight really is?" I asked, walking closer to Evelyn and Lucas. "Dead weight is carrying someone else's lies for 15 years. Dead weight is working double shifts to pay for medical school while your wife fucks her way through the cardiology department. Dead weight is believing someone when they say they love you, right up until they serve you divorce papers and laugh about it with their friends." I was close enough now to see the fear in their eyes. "But you know what's funny about dead weight? It sinks things. And right now, you two are drowning." That's when Miranda Brandt stepped out of the crowd, looking like an avenging angel in a business suit. "Dr. Brandt," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the night air, "I have something for you." She handed him a manila envelope. "Divorce papers. Also, a lawsuit for theft, fraud, and alienation of affection. You're being sued for $2 million, which coincidentally is about what you've stolen from my law practice over the past 3 years." Lucas opened the envelope with shaking hands, his face going gray as he read the documents. "And Dr. Halprin," Miranda continued, turning to Evelyn, "you're being sued as well, for conspiracy, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress against both my client and myself." "Your client?" Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. Miranda smiled and gestured toward me. "Mr. Nicholas Halprin. My client, my friend, and the man who's about to own everything you thought you'd stolen from him." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Someone actually threw popcorn. I took the microphone again, looking out at the faces of my friends and neighbors, people who'd supported me through the worst 3 years of my life. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the former Dr. Lucas Brandt and the former Dr. Evelyn Halprin, unemployed, homeless, broke, and facing multiple lawsuits. They wanted to know what dead weight looked like." I gestured to the two broken people standing in the floodlights, surrounded by the wreckage of their lives. "Now they know." The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Evelyn and a text message that simply said, "Please." I deleted it without reading the rest. The local newspaper ran the story on the front page. "Hospital doctors suspended in sex scandal." The article detailed the investigation, the ethics violations, and the public humiliation at the construction site. By noon, it had been picked up by 3 regional papers and a medical journal. Dr. Evelyn Halprin and Dr. Lucas Brandt were finished in the medical profession. I was having coffee at the Faded Lantern when Cassie slid me the morning paper and a shot of whiskey. "Thought you might want to celebrate," she said. "It's 10 in the morning." "Honey, it's never too early to celebrate justice." She had a point. I downed the whiskey and read the article. The reporter had done their homework. They'd found other women Lucas had harassed, other instances of misconduct, other examples of the hospital administration looking the other way because he was a good surgeon who brought in money. The scandal was growing beyond just my personal revenge. It was becoming a reckoning for the entire hospital system. "There's more," Cassie said, pulling out her phone. "Evelyn's been calling everyone in town, trying to find someone who'll listen to her side of the story. She's claiming you stalked her, harassed her, ruined her life for no reason. Anyone buying it? Honey, after last night's show, she couldn't get sympathy from a grief counselor. The whole town knows what she did to you." My phone rang. Miranda Brandt. "Good morning, Mr. Halprin. I have news." "Good news or great news?" "Great news. Lucas tried to flee town this morning. Made it about 50 miles before his creditors caught up with him. He's currently in the emergency room at County General, with 2 broken legs and a very clear understanding of why gambling debts should be paid on time. And Evelyn, evicted from the motel for non-payment. Last seen loading her belongings into her car and driving toward the interstate. I don't think she'll be back." I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and emptiness. 3 years of planning, 3 months of execution, and it was over. They were gone, destroyed, erased from the life they'd tried to steal from me. There's something else, Miranda continued. The hospital board met this morning. They're offering you Lucas's old job, head of facilities management. Significant pay raise, full benefits, and a formal apology for the way you were treated. They're apologizing to me? Apparently, when the story broke about how you'd been working maintenance in the same hospital where your ex-wife was conducting her affair, it didn't look good for them. They're trying to make amends. What did you tell them? I told them you'd consider it. But Nick, you don't have to take their guilt money. You've got enough evidence to sue them for emotional distress, hostile work environment, and about 6 other things. You could retire comfortably on what we could get from them. I thought about it for a moment. The job, the money, the vindication. 3 years ago, any of it would have seemed impossible. Now it all felt like consolation prizes. I'll take the job, I said finally. But not because I need their apology. Because I want to be there, in that building, every day, as a reminder of what happens when you mistake dead weight for weakness. Miranda laughed, a sound like silver bells with sharp edges. Mr. Halprin, you are a truly vindictive man. I respect that. Thank you, Mrs. Brandt. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. That evening, I drove out to the construction site where it had all ended. The floodlights were gone, the chairs packed away. But I could still feel the electricity of that moment when everything had come together perfectly. My phone buzzed with another text from Evelyn. I know you'll never forgive me, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I loved you, Nick. I just forgot how to show it. I stared at the message for a long time, thinking about 15 years of marriage, 3 years of silence, and 1 night of perfect revenge. Then I typed back. Dead weight doesn't love, Evelyn. It just sinks things, and you're drowning. I hit send and blocked her number. Standing there in the darkness, surrounded by the ruins of someone else's dream, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 3 years. Peace. Not happiness. That would come later, maybe. But the deep, quiet satisfaction of a job well done. Evelyn Halprin had called me dead weight and thrown me away like garbage. She'd laughed about it with her friends, planned to destroy me if I fought back, and used my money to support her boyfriend's gambling addiction. But dead weight, as I'd learned, has its own kind of power. It pulls things down to the bottom, where the pressure is crushing and the light never reaches, and sometimes that's exactly where they belong. I got back in my truck and drove home, leaving the construction site and the wreckage of their lives behind me. Tomorrow, I'd start my new job as head of facilities management at Riverside Hospital. I'd work in the same building where they'd conducted their affair, walk the same halls where they'd planned my destruction, and every day would be a reminder of how the dead weight had won in